How do we find the domain of a function? Suppose we have a function f of x, 2x minus 7. The domain of this function is, domain will be negative infinity, comma positive infinity. This is the domain of this function. For the sake of quadratic functions, let's say we have f of x, x squared plus 9x plus 20. Also, the domain of this function is domain will be negative infinity, comma positive infinity. And also for the sake of the polynomial functions, let's say we have a function f of x, 2x cubed. This is a polynomial function, 2x cubed plus 2x squared plus 7x minus 5. This is a polynomial function. Also, the domain of this function will be negative infinity, comma positive infinity. The domain of the three functions is the same thing as negative infinity, comma positive infinity. Those are the domain of these three functions. Let's see some examples under domain. Let's find the solution of these three functions. Each and every question is a function. Suppose this is the first question. It has a function. Here we're supposed to have a function f of x. F of x, yes, also a function f of x. Yeah. Let's see the first question say f of x is equals to 5 over x minus 2. What's the domain of this function? The domain of this function is, the first thing to do is to just consider on the denominator, which was x minus 2. The denominator doesn't contain any radical form, but rather we have to equate it as not equals to 0. So therefore x is not equals to, when the negative 2 cross the equal sign, not equal sign, will be exactly positive 2. So therefore the domain of this function f of x, 5 over x minus 2, is positive 2. And also we know that domain of any domain of a function is a set of real number. So to set it in interval form, we can say negative infinity, comma positive infinity, and here we are having our real number, which was 2. So the domain of this function will be negative infinity, comma positive 2, the real number, union 2, comma infinity 2, comma positive infinity. So therefore this is a domain of this function. F of x is equals to 5 over x minus 2 in interval form. This is a solution of this question. The second example says f of x is equal to square root of x minus 4. So what's the domain of this function? The difference between the first example and the second example is, from the first example we are having a fraction of 5 over x minus 2, and we use the denominator to find our domain. For this question is a radical form. So what are we going to do with this? Our final solution will be, we have to take x minus 4 and let it as is not equals to 0. For the radical forms, whenever we find a question that says anything x minus 4, anything we see x minus 4, either x minus 1 into square root, which were the radical forms, we can just let it as not equals to 0. Okay, sorry, greater than or equals to. For the first question, we can say not equals to 0 because the denominator doesn't contain any radical form. So the solution of this question is, when we say x is not equals to, when the negative 4 cross the not equal sign, it's supposed to be positive 4. So therefore, what's the domain of this function in interval form? In a real number, we already know that positive 4 is our final solution of this function, the domain of this function. If we are going to set it in interval form, we can say that the domain of this function is 4 comma positive infinity. So here is the answer for this function, and you can set it as the interval line, which was the positive 4, negative infinity, and infinity. You can set it as infinity, okay, sorry, negative infinity, let me correct it, negative infinity, comma, 4 union of what? 4 infinity. So this is a final solution for the second question. So here is the third question in domain. The question says f of x is equals to 2x minus 7 over into square root of x plus 3. So what's the domain of this function? The first question, we're having a fraction but without any radical form. The second question, we're having only radical form. And in the third question that we're going to solve it now, we're having non-radical over radical form. How can we solve this problem? So whenever we come across this problem, we have to take the radical form and set it as greater than 0. Let's see. We have to say x plus 3 is greater than 0. For the first question, we say that it's not equal to 0 because our denominator doesn't contain a radical form. But for the second question, we say that it's greater than or equals to 0 because we're having only radical form without any fraction. And in the third question, we're having 2x minus 7 over a radical form. We divide a function f of x, a monomial function divide with a radical form. So therefore we have to say is greater than 0. You have to know the three difference between this function and this function and this function. Whenever you know the difference, you can be able to solve any different question in domain. So therefore we see that x is greater than, when positive 3 cross the greater sign equal, it will change its sign at what we have did before for the second question and for the first question. We're having negative 3. So the final solution of this, we can say the domain of this function is negative 3 comma infinity. So this is the domain of this function f of x. In our next video, we shall see the range, how to find the range in a function. So this is the end of this domain range, but only domain because we talk about domains. Thank you for watching and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos. Thank you.